This is Mindustry PvP. I am Larifedicus. I played this game a few days ago. It's the last Serpulo game I have recorded on the 140 release. Made some balance changes with the 141 coming out today. So that'll be fun for the future. But for now, this is the last one where air unit crash damage is the major thing to do. New meta coming. That'll be fun. So I'm expecting to have a nice duel with one other reasonably good player that's on the server playing this game. Taron is somewhere else, and there's a few other scrap players around. Sometimes they surprise me, sometimes they don't. Normal opening. This is also the last game I have recorded where the foo client autofill is still a thing. I recently made the decision. We're gonna try disabling that in the most accessible way. And it turns out the way to do that is to turn on the rule for core deposit only from the player. You do end up losing some possibilities. There's no manual filling of any turrets whatsoever. You can't make a unit factory produce faster by dropping some materials into it anymore. But that very well might be an acceptable loss given how prevalent autofill is becoming and how it makes ugly defenses. Like people just spatter down some swarmers and then it fills them itself. Oh, alright, there was a map glance. So there is one other player very close to me. See the edge of them right there, and Taron is further directly to the south. So I'm gonna have to deal with this player before heading in that direction, and hopefully whatever I do to deal with them doesn't put me too far behind when it comes time to fight the person I actually expect to fight. So I've decided to expand to the lower left hex, which is a little bit further out of that pink player's view. And the reason for that is I don't want their peripheral vision to catch me coming before I have my assault force ready. I'm gonna do silicon build and then 4 dagger factories, and that's what I'm gonna use to go after him. But I don't want that stuff to be immediately adjacent to him, so he knows to start putting down arcs or lancers or whatever. If that stuff comes, then it's going to be a lot less useful to have 4 factories of daggers going. I forgot to water my thorium, but it actually doesn't hurt too bad at this point because I only need 1 or 2 air blasts to start with, which is going to be the coal that goes into the 6 mechanical sand schematics that are going to go in that hex. And there's nothing at all to the left there. So I got that open up, and then I can start staging ready to actually get rid of this pink player. We're at 4 minutes and this is happening, which isn't the best. You'd like to already have these things by this point, but it's a little bit slower to open up the second hex in V7 than in V6. Partially because I changed the schematic, and also significantly affected by the 50% unit damage nerf, which is necessary to keep flare rushes from being the only thing that everyone ever does every single game. So I'm actually limited on what I can do at this point in the game because the silicon hasn't actually fired up yet. So I can't really build anything with a significant amount of silicon in it. some time for things to build up before actually putting down the dagger factory. It would be nice to have a second silicon array, but I'm going for it now. Like, this 6 silicon plus the 2 that I already have is enough to support this dagger production, but each dagger factory itself needs a lot of silicon, so that, you know, if you don't have a stockpile when you start, then you're going to stall partway through building it anyway. And then it kind of slows down a little bit more as it's already loading out silicon into factories while it's under construction. That laser drill was too close to the neighboring hex, so the core explosion got it. Turn back on my second mono factory. And we're starting to actually do pressure stuff over here. Yeah, and there's some of those. I don't think this is actually an autofill player. I think he's just dropping turrets and then using his human hand to put things in, which I don't mind. I think it is sort of a good balance option and a good gameplay option to be able to pay human attention to something to get a bit of an efficiency boost, like, you know, manually winding something or setting something or whatever. It's just that there's no way to prevent a mod or client-side game modification or whatever from expanding that ability to do things at human speed to just automatically take whatever resource you need and put it into the thing, paying no attention to it whatsoever. It'd be nice if there were like some rate limiting or cooldown on that transfer or something, but there's not yet. If I really wanted to bring back manual loading into non-core buildings, then I probably could put like a cooldown on the process, and that would slow down everybody to approximately the same speed, mod or not. But relative to Erekir, Serpulo doesn't need it nearly as much, sort of the manual loading. You know, the unloading is necessary for fixing clogs and stuff like that, but the loading really can only be used, or really only gets used for emergency defense. I see flares, put down some scatters and some light ammo sources on them. I've got a nice stockpile of copper and lead, so this just costs a little bit of attention. Alright, second silicon factory. Bring the entire dagger reserves over to finish off this person there. They're not really putting out much of a fight, so it's time to start also pushing south and trying to establish a good border with whatever progress Taron has made at this point. I probably should be panning down there to see what's awaiting. I haven't yet. I also got to be careful with those daggers that they don't get too close to arcs or lancers come out or something. Right. And this is one of my do everything you can with whatever resources you're bothering to put into it schems. You know, if you're bothering to build an oil extractor, you might as well, you know, get power, get platinum, and it's got lead and sand in it already, so make glass too. Alright, so he's got a pile of flares, and he's got 2 silicon factories of approximately the same capability as mine. So we're about even at this point. And that's going to call for my fast flare defense unloader thing, which is a few scatters with glass in them. And that thing will pretty much shut down any amount of flares that might come and attack at this point to a particular core. They could definitely be used as like skirmishing around the edges, hitting eco buildings. Core attrition would help out, or life support attrition. He would actually need to take some cores closer to me if he was going to use them in that way. But as far as just like diving straight towards a core, as long as I have at least a few scatters around, then I'll be able to weather that. Get the daggers down a little further, set up the flare defense a little further. I didn't see that he had any significant amount of ground troops, so I don't have to worry about something being... Oh, so here comes the flares. I do have some daggers there. He takes attrition hit. Attrition the shield. I don't know what they're... It looks like they shot at belts, so that very well could have worked for him. But he tried to go around the back, and it looks like something went wrong with the control, and then I got the shield up, and it was over. So that was kind of a close call, but I managed to get away with it. But it also turned my daggers around, and now he's starting to put... Like, those salvos will stop an impressive amount of daggers. Don't worry about that. That schematic is very general purpose. It's going to make some more monos, some polys, and some pulsers for, shield protection on units. It's really easy to put pulsar shields on whatever you want now, since everything can be moved manually. But they're also good at just like sending to take fallen cores. And I do want to spend at least some time expanding my core count just so I stop hitting the unit cap on the daggers. Although, the longer I spend at dagger unit cap, the more spare silicon I'm going to accumulate. And here we go, actually using the daggers, and I can just walk around the stuff, sure. There's no walls on the back. So that'll be back and forth with flares versus daggers for a while. It would be nice to hold it. That would pretty much be the end of the game, but it's not critical since I have 2 or 3 more layers of defense behind it. I can afford to just, mount a slowdown kind of defense there. Try and make it expensive, but it doesn't hurt too much if I actually lose. All that microing I've been doing, I've banked up stuff to put the big power plant. And once I do the big power plant, then I can do the big phase factory and get even more by boosting the overdrive in there. And then that opens up to all like the big high production schematics that I'm gonna want for actually making the army that's going to push through. Go for a big power jump from just daggers to everything also. It'd be nice if I could lock the polys into just use your basic AI the whole time. And even if you get a move command, go back to default AI afterwards. Because as soon as, if I do a G select, that's going to get polys also. And then they're going to move. And then they're going to stop doing automatic helping. And we'll start putting up some of the backline defense also. We don't want any flare blobs sneaking back here and getting this is a valuable hex. Don't want to lose that. And I noticed that I've been lazy about graphite production. So I've got to put down extra of the... What do you do when you need graphite and you don't have any schematic? Those are a little too close to the front. Although they are benefiting from the poly healing, which is nice to be around in that situation. But yeah, rallying too close to enemy territory can be punished. But I'm also going to be able to do basically the exact same attack again as the first time I took that core and get away with it. And I didn't point it out at the time. I think it was at like the 5-minute mark or so. But a second good player joined the game. Silicon God, I think. And he spawned further down. So he is below Taron and sort of pinching him from both sides. But I haven't actually been able to see it yet. That purple down there at the very bottom, which I haven't really noticed. Take this core back and forth a few times. I don't know what my polys think. I get my player unit killed too often. I should put a nucleus on the front lines, but I don't. And that'll keep happening. The big silicon factory, it does not run at 100%. It's fine. I think it needs a tiny little bit more sand in it since the pyrite recipe changed. But it's good enough. There is some auto-filled hails. I should probably be emptying those out with like conveyors before going, but whatever. Just wire that up. Start boosting the backline defenses a little bit more. This ad hoc way of doing it is not great for like being able to put my core unloading quarter schematics on. So I'm not really thinking ahead with the shield placement. I can just take it down later if I need to. Power here is goofy. I got a nice place to stand that's got no guns. You can just waste his flares there, whatever. That's a self-powered flare factory. I probably should have just like a coal to flares and don't bother with the steam gens factory, since I am nowhere near a power deficit at this point. But that's the one I have, and it's like I could disconnect it from power and it would just run on its own and be no problem whatsoever to anything. But yeah, if I get a blackout, then I'm already wrong. I'm now trying to add some schematics to round out what would go into a T3 factory. Nope, okay. And here's the quarter for it. So I've got some surge and I've got enough plast to start putting down the swarmers, which at this point in version release 140, surge swarmers are seemingly quite overpowered and they're the thing to use for defense. So they get cryo coolant, and they get the overdrive boosted. And I can use that overdrive in like 3 other core schematics on that same hex. So it's really good for backline economy hexes, since it is strong against any sort of air trying to sneak behind, and it boosts whatever else I might happen to build in there. Ran out of platinum for building swarmers, so let's get more platinum. I got a few polys, so yeah. So I've managed to ratchet forward a little bit. I've got like this one protected salient, one of those words that you always see written and much less spoken. So who cares how you say it? I really want to make sure that I don't run out of titanium, since that is like, that's an input to my power plant. So running out of titanium is running out of power as well. And I've got my own flares accumulated now, that those can go into attacks that are crash damage driven. So yeah, that's real easy to take. I don't even need to worry about the crash damage there. I don't need them all. We're gonna push the salient a little bit further. And then the light defensive schematic that I have, it builds real fast and it's narrow. So a lot of times if I put 4 unloading economic schematics, there will be this column of 3 wide space. And I like to have schematics that I can fit into that space. So I've got sort of several fort pieces that are a column of defense to fit in between other schematics. You should get a shield too. Don't forget to add a shield here. There it is. Good. Yeah, I made sure to turn off the power on that overdrive before leaving to make sure I didn't hit brownout before this gets started. And this will bring another 20-ish thousand, 10,000, 20, some number of thousands additional power is going to come from that. And I've got a nice point to rally people for future attacks down here. The flare attack that I did right before that didn't, well, it took the core and that all got rebuilt, but it was at least expensive and distracting. You know, if I can take cores that are also locations of any enemy army rallying, then that's also hitting them with attrition. So that's putting me ahead. One of the things about doing a air unit crash damage core hit is you're going to lose all of the units that you send to do it, because the core explosion from, you know, all the surge that is definitely in there is going to kill every unit instead of just half of them. I would really, so to the left there, that Zenith factory, I want to bother that. I also don't want to be wrapped around on the left side, so at some point I'm also going to start diverting daggers to the left to get some defenses that sort of close around this 2 hex opening here. I expect daggers to be, or I expect Zeniths to be coming, so I want this to be a stronger point. And I put the offset a little bit more to make sure that I could go back later and upgrade that to a nucleus. Because if I put a vault next to it, then there isn't a 6x6 core upgrade I can use. It's got to be something that's 5 wide. Go get the polys. Come on, help. Now there's a definite autofiller there. So you just drop scatters around and don't worry about running ammo logistics at all. And the autofiller mod will take care of putting the ammo in them. A little probing attack to see. Did I get that? Yes. Okay. So I get that. And I would have my fast defense in there, but I went too close too soon and got myself shot down by the scatters. And there were zeniths chilling in there anyway, so they'll take that back quickly, and I'm going to have to send another attack. But in the meantime, I can put at least some stalling defense. Maybe. All right. Silicon shortage. Turning off the Zenith factory, and I need to get another one of these. And that's a matter of finding a spot on a core somewhere that I can actually fit it. So we're gonna upgrade this hex to defended and boosted, which will take a little... It's gonna take a while of building here since I'm doing it under silicon shortage. So I'm just going to leave my player here and go pan and do some combat stuff to keep things safe in the meantime. All right. There's megas, there's polys. So now I've figured out that, oh, there are actually 2 skilled players down here. There's Taron and Silicon. And so one of the things that I'm intentionally doing is leaving Taron alone on that right side. I could be pushing over there and get through pretty easy, but I actually want to make sure that all of this stuff is kept busy. That attack went poorly. I should be putting down belts to run those swarmers out of ammo. Unless he actually flies over here, then they will run out of ammo. And my ammo is draining a bit because my swarmers stick out a little bit too far. Although at least he's paying lead for it. And we're getting some sort of opportunity ground to the left side over here. I don't want him building into this hex. Luckily I've got these reserves of ground units around. And here comes the autofill. Polys help build them faster, and then it just poof instantly got the surge in it. But I do still have that core that was to the southwest of that one. So I've still got life support there, and those daggers can go, like, do a little bit more something. But I don't have the military to retake the autofill defended core there, so I'm actually backing up my line a bit. I'm going to try to take this hex and the one directly to the left of it, and maybe get some more of these either quarter forts or something in there. Well, I did finish the second big silicon factory, and I am reaccumulating there. I can probably turn my zeniths back on. Although I'd really want a third of those. Yeah, he knows to upgrade cores to beat the crash damage focused assaults. So he's got a foundation with one of the sort of standard defensive pillars on it. And these things here are designed to be sort of, I can stretch it out to reach further if I wanted to and form like sort of a wall that stretches beyond like the core that it's unloading from. Like I can wind them forward, backward, whatever. And if it's covering more space, then that gives sort of less maneuvering room for like flares or something to try and fly through, around, or behind that hex. And with this, it looks like he concentrated a lot of defense on that left side without fortifying the southwest one. So when I get some stuff accumulated, I'm going to head diagonally downward to the left. And that's also where he's got Zenith production, so it's going to have the bonus of diminishing his army while it happens. And now that I've got the conveyor belts emptying out the auto-filled swarmers, then that attack's going to work a lot better. It's basically just scatters there. So staggering out my air units by speed so they all arrive at roughly the same time. And they just need to fly as far as being over the core. And then I take it, but I die. So I'm not going to be able to get building replacement stuff into that core quickly. This is still expensive, and it has the bonus of cutting off power around that left side. So that hurts his economy a bit too. Build isn't going fast enough. I managed to take it back again. Can I actually get something built in it this time? Should be able to. I've got enough units around now that I've got a better chance of holding this. And with the swarmers up, I can start using them to harass before like defenses go up to the left there. Get that, get a shield. And that's going to make a good rally point. So instead of pressing that advantage further, I'm going to make sure that this access point gets sealed off. And then you're going to keep accumulating army there. And with the way that I've pushed that front, like right into the middle of the purple holdings, I have a lot of options for attacking, and I've got a lot of life support space. Like there's a great power plant right there that I don't even have to leave my hex to shoot at. And the amount of defense in that hex is also pretty low. So going to the southeast now looks like a good next place to attack. Well, actually, both of those southern hexes look pretty good. But just sending the Zeniths was dumb. That was a waste. Yeah, they blew up some batteries, and it looks like they blew up some vaults. One of the changes of V7 is that vaults that are connected to cores don't blow up with the content explosion like they used to. It used to be, well, I liked putting parts of my forts as containers or vaults, but a problem with that was that if the container blew, then it blew with the force of surge, and it took out the core that it was attached to. So that was a vulnerability I always had to look out for. But it doesn't do that anymore. So now you can put all sorts of cores and vaults around things and have nothing to worry about. So I've decided I want more platinum production because I want to do T4 to actually push through these swarmer clusters that have been going up. So I need bigger, fatter air bodies with more hit points that can actually, push through the fire. And in the meantime, I can do harassment and I can, cause them to take some time to drop some autofill swarmers, and I'll be able to conveyor belt those. I've not yet noticed that I ran myself out of graph, but luckily there's a good amount of coal right here. I'll just put it right here. Rally the troops. See what the next attack can do. I should at least glance at this player that is spawned on the northwest side of my holdings. They could be doing something real and I should check, but I assume that they're not, and I don't get punished for it in this game. I am playing badly if I have to move on to another schematic construction before finishing the one before it. I'm not tracking my graphite well. All right. Doing the unit positioning to attack the lower left. And that's just, move right to the other side of the core, and the explosions will take care of it. And then pull back the ground units, because it's more reserves for something. Yeah, they crash through shields, they take out the core. Then I've got some units left there. I've got some ability to potentially rehold it. And I'm putting the ground units in play. I'd also cut off the power on the left side. That's an extra bonus, and I've had some reserves build up. Graphite still isn't recovering. Building some defenses there would also be something I'd like to do. But I've got to get this graphite situation under control first. I should also be periodically checking back to see what Taron's doing in case that he could be massing a force on my right flank, and I would want to notice that if it happens. This stuff is under defended, but I don't actually have the units moving. Yeah. The crash attacking doesn't work nearly as well on Nucleus. I don't think I get this one. It's also, he's got repairing, he's got the swarmers hitting, and the polys healing is also doing a lot. Still not as much graphite as I want. Add another factory. Alright, that doesn't look dangerous. This is still secure for now. That's a Antumbra factory. It is true that Antumbra attack sucks, but it has more hit points than a quad. And I think it's faster too. And for crash damage meta, that's what you need. So one thing to point out is that this is the last game where the crash damage meta could possibly be a thing, because sort of in an offhand conversation in the Mindustry Discord, I asked, would it be worth making a suggestion for a game rule that removed air unit crash damage? And to my surprise and delight, the game developer responded 10 minutes later like, okay, yeah, it's in. And they had already committed it into the branch. So starting version 141, there is a game rule that I can turn off unit crash damage, which forces all the damage to come from weapons fire. And that will make shields and walls and repairs and all sorts of defensive stuff other than swarmers more important. So we might end up with actual forts again instead of this just barfing swarmers all over the place. Another balance change that I could finally put in with version 140, without crash damage, then it's not as important for turrets to be as dominant, as far as damage output, because under this meta for this game, you need to be able to kill the air units before they get over the core. But if they can get over the core and their crash isn't going to damage it, and their weapons fire can't get through walls or shields or whatever, then I can diminish the turret damage on par with how much I've diminished the unit damage. And then sort of the net effect of that is that the time to kill for all fights increases, and you end up with sort of more time to do things tactically. The time to kill reasoning that gets used in first-person shooter games a lot. How many seconds do you see someone else across before the damage of the guns or their fire rates or whatever actually results in someone being dead? And there's different kinds of games based on whether that's a long fight or a short fight. Well, I would prefer to have people doing long fights here, and reducing the damage of everything is going to make that happen. All right, T4 factory is running. My accumulation of forces is good. I'm losing some surge to nearby buildings myself. He's reconnected those hexes around to the left. But yeah, this big fat boy here is gonna make a difference on these attacks. And now it's just a matter of deciding which way I want to go. So setting up the preparation for the attack based on unit speeds, doing the move, calling back ground units, and yeah, and it's the Antumbra destruction that pops the core. There I gotta go all the way back home again. And that fight caused him to surrender. So he's out. Silicon God. That wasn't Devil. There's a Silicon Devil and there's a Silicon God. Two different people, I think. Probably. So with him gone, then it's a matter of taking care of Taron. He's got his swarmers out, but I can just lumber in lazily, take that out. So it was the proper political decision to leave him alone until this point. And he didn't really bank up enough power to turn me back when my attention changes to him. The two of them probably would have been better off trucing amongst themselves than both coming after me. These quasars and higher tier ground units are really underwhelming because they're really slow, and you don't get any unit crash damage from them. think there may also be some fallen stuff to the left, but we're gonna get just to the point of Taron being eliminated, and then it's just mop-up phase that's gonna get skipped. And I'm running low on titanium, I seem to have noticed. That is one of the things about running. T4 factories use a lot of titanium. You want to have a lot banked up or in production if you're going to operate even one of them. It takes like 3 or 4 of my platinum factories to cover a boosted T4. And, you know, like 3, 4 air blasts of it. Alright, they've successfully pushed. Alright, yeah. Taron's got nothing left. There's this yellow player named Blorby. That is a name which demands respect. I'm not sure if I'll even be watching when Blorby happens to go. Probably not. At this point, we consider skipping all the way to the end. We will stop by to see what Blorby has to defend himself. Copper walls against air. Not a great choice. So I'm at the end of mop-up, and there is one fallen core, their nucleus left, and all the remaining players have been banished to the fallen team. And what they're doing is they're just putting down a tremendous number of scatters and then autofilling them. And that's what they're up to. So that holds off all of this air stuff, even the Antumbras. And so the plan for finishing that off is I'm going to move to this forward position, and I'm going to I'm going to dome a bunch of dagger factories. The dagger factories are going to be very effective against walls of scatters and duos. There's duos. Okay, well, I'm not sure where they're getting the lead to afford this. They don't. It must be stockpiled up over the course of the entire game. Should get some polys over here. Yeah, here come the polys. Let's speed this along. As long as I am closer to the polys than the other players, then they won't assist the wrong players, which is a bug present in this version. They got fixed in 141. All right, and the daggers are off. Scatter's still being effective. The power of menders. And there's armor on the nucleus, which most stuff doesn't have armor on Serpulo. The shield effect that's new in version 7 is pretty cool. It's better than the previous shield effect. $220 daggers. That ought to be enough. And it's over. Hooray. Good game.